Kraft cheese has been a staple in American kitchens for over a century. At one point, Kraft controlled around 40% of the US cheese market.
Tastes good and cheesy.
It's creamy.
It's good.
I do like it.
But in recent years, consumers have been searching for healthier options. Sales of processed cheese products like Kraft Singles and Velveeta have declined by 12% over the last decade, even though Americans are eating more cheese than ever. The pandemic has given Kraft a welcome boost in sales, but will it be enough to stop the fall? The Kraft story began in 1903 when Canadian-born businessman James L. Kraft moved to Chicago and started selling cheese out of a wagon. Business was so successful that in 1909, Kraft and his brothers formed their own cheese company. A few years later, they opened a factory in the small town of Stockton, Illinois. It was here that J.L. Kraft took on the challenge to turn leftover scraps of cheddar cheese into a longer-lasting product with consistent taste.
Now look, J.L., you know it'll never work. When you heat cheese hot enough to make it keep, it's going to separate.
But it did work. Kraft discovered that if he heated the cheddar with an emulsifier, it would create a smooth cheese that would have a much longer shelf life. He was making what we now call American cheese. And in 1916, Kraft became the first person to patent this process. His invention couldn't have come at a better time. When the US military deployed over 4 million soldiers in World War I, it needed a huge supply of non-perishable food. The army bought 6 million pounds of cheese from Kraft, over £1.50 per soldier. By 1921, Kraft was selling 1,000 tons of cheese per month. Kraft built on this success by acquiring competitors like the Velveeta Cheese Company in 1927 and merging with the Phoenix Cheese Company the following year. In 1929, Kraft's annual sales surpassed $86 million. The 1930s would see another masterstroke, a box of elbow macaroni with a foil package of Kraft cheese.
Macaroni and cheese makes a hit, and it's simple with Kraft macaroni and cheese dinner. Only a nickel a serving, too.
And once again, the timing couldn't have been better. The United States was in the late stages of the Great Depression, and a box of Kraft macaroni and cheese could feed a family of 4 for only 19 cents, or roughly $3.50 today. It was an instant hit. Kraft sold 8 million boxes in the first year. Sales continued to rise during World War II, when ration coupons could be traded in for Kraft's macaroni and cheese dinners. And just as it had in the First World War, Kraft supplied tins of cheese to the US military. The next game changer came in 1950, when Kraft invented a way to slice processed cheese.
Fabulous flavours, and so quick. Mum said it took them no time at all to make enough for the party. Trouble with Kraft cheese slices is they're so good, there's no such thing as enough.
And 15 years later, it launched the now ubiquitous individually wrapped slices.
Singles are individually wrapped, so every single one stays fresh, even if it's the last one in the package.
Luckily for Kraft, Americans' appetite for cheese was skyrocketing. By 1980, Americans were consuming 17.5 pounds of cheese per capita, more than twice as much as in 1950. Kraft wasn't afraid to tell consumers to put cheese on just about anything.
Arrange on greens with chicken, tomato, and avocado, top with sprouts and bacon.
By the mid-90s, Kraft controlled over 50% of the processed cheese market. And when Kraft Foods went public in 2001, it was the second largest IPO in US history. Americans' seemingly endless appetite for processed foods had fueled Kraft's growth for nearly a century. But all that was about to change.
Over time, what really happened was this kind of cultural awakening to what the heck was all that stuff that we were adding to food and then putting in our bodies.
In late 2002, the Food and Drug Administration accused Kraft of violating its labeling standards. The company was making its singles with milk protein concentrate, an ingredient the FDA does not allow in products labelled pasteurized processed cheese food. Rather than change the recipe, Kraft just relabeled its singles as pasteurized prepared cheese product. But Americans were waking up to the potential negative health impacts of ultra-processed foods, and Kraft began to worry. The company listed consumer concerns about food safety, quality, and health as one of its major challenges in 2004. Kraft responded by removing trans fat from some products and offering low-fat cheese slices. Still, in 2006, the company reported a 2% decline in the processed cheese market. Awareness of healthier eating only grew when influential figures like Michelle Obama launched a national campaign to fight childhood obesity in 2010.
Today, we know that we can no longer let our kids eat whatever they want.
A 2013 petition to remove artificial dyes from Kraft macaroni and cheese gained over 360,000 signatures. And a report at the time said that more than half of consumers were concerned with the nutrition of processed cheese. Kraft did remove synthetic dyes from its macaroni and cheese and also ditched the artificial preservatives in its singles. But revenue from cheese products hadn't increased much since 2008. Warren Buffett took a gamble on the company in 2015, partnering with Brazilian private equity firm 3G Capital to finance a merger between Kraft and Heinz. The move aimed to turn Kraft's fortunes around by slashing expenses and cutting 2,500 jobs.
In focusing so much on cutting costs, did Kraft Heinz miss out on some opportunities to do things that actually grow the top line?
But 2018 brought more bad news. Kraft Heinz announced the market value of its brand portfolio had declined by a whopping $15.4 billion.
They were effectively saying that these brands are not, as powerful as they thought they were.
The Kraft brand itself was responsible for a loss of $4.1 billion because the company anticipated less growth in the processed cheese category. The whole debacle even led Warren Buffett to admit,
"We paid too much money for Kraft. To some extent, our own actions had driven up the prices."
Since the merger, Kraft Heinz's stock has sunk about 45%. But Kraft tends to thrive when disasters strike. In 2020, when the pandemic drove consumers to stock up on non-perishable goods, Kraft products were suddenly in high demand. Sales of its macaroni and cheese were up 27% during the first quarter, compared to the same period in 2019. Some factories were operating 3 shifts a day to keep up with demand, but with the end of the pandemic in sight, what next for Kraft?
As the world opens up and as people have the option to go and eat out again, it'll be interesting to see how much of that Kraft Heinz retains.
And Kraft continues to be plagued by concerns over its ingredients. In 2021, a class action lawsuit filed against Kraft Heinz claimed its macaroni and cheese contained harmful levels of chemicals known as orthophthalates. Kraft Heinz told Insider there is no merit to the lawsuit, and its macaroni and cheese products are safe to consume.
I'm not hungry! You're having one more bite! No! One more bite!
Critics also accuse Kraft of showing healthy food in a bad light, in commercials that are targeted at children.
Kraft, for the win-win.
Kraft Heinz said the commercials were aimed at adults, but that they wouldn't air the ads after 2021. In late 2020, Kraft Heinz announced it would sell off its natural cheese division to French dairy company Lactalis Group. But processed cheese is something Kraft Heinz is still holding on to. Despite changing consumer trends, Kraft remains one of the most powerful companies in the food industry. And with 40% of American households still buying Kraft singles, the American story of processed cheese is far from over.